Welcome into the Locked On Knicks podcast. I'm Gavin Schall. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Ariel Pacheco to answer your questions, including what would the ideal RJ Barrett trade be? Would a return to Canada make sense? What's the Knicks record going to look like over their next 20 games? And finally, our favorite defensive lineup from the Knicks this season. All that and more starting right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You are Locked On Knicks. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. And we want to thank you for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day. We are now available on all platforms, and that includes, you guessed it, on YouTube. But who's talking to you? I'm Gavin Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. Typically, I'd be joined by Alex Wolf, but he is on a lovely vacation this week. So I am lucky enough to have the fantastic company of Ariel Pacheco. You guys know it, one of my favorite people to have on this podcast. You can check him out at Pacheco NBA on Twitter, where he does Knicks film breakdowns. They come after essentially every single game. Some of them are a couple of minutes with audio. Some of them are just individual clips. And Ariel breaks it down in a way very few other people can. And now he's here to answer your questions. So let's get into it with Ariel right now on Locked On Knicks. All right, guys, as promised, I'm joined by the man, the myth, Ariel Pacheco. Ariel, how's it going, man? Thank you for joining me as always. We always have you on for game recaps, so I thought I'd vary it up and throw some mailbag questions your way.
Yeah, we got to switch it up, but I'm glad to be here. I always have fun hopping on Locked On, so let's get started. I'm ready whenever you are.
You're very, very patient as I brutally misspelled your name on the graphic a couple of times, so I appreciate that, but we'll keep it moving. First question comes from Joel Robertson at JD Robo 23, sick handle. If RJ was on the trade block, what realistic offers could we expect? So I thought the best way to do this, because it is a very reasonable question given how he's played this year, but also kind of a crazy one given the extension that he just signed, given what he still means to this franchise, I think, and given that I don't really have any clue what the market would be for him. So I came up with a list of teams that I thought would be semi-realistic, some specific deals, some just team names. Just let me know what you think. So the first one I'm going to throw at you is an upgrade. Returning RJ to his native Canada, a deal for OG Anunoby. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the trade up on your screen. It is the Knicks getting OG Anunoby. It is the Raptors getting RJ, Jakob Poeltl from the Spurs. And I initially had Quentin Grimes in there, but I thought people would flame me. So I switched it to Emmanuel Quickly. And then the Spurs just basically getting some flotsam, including Otto Porter, Precious Achiuwa, and a protected first-round pick from the Knicks for their troubles. I think the Knicks would probably do this pretty quickly without a lot of thought. My question is, would that make any sense for Toronto to buy low on RJ, to add some shooting and defense when they need both those things? I mean, defense would be adding to his strength, obviously. Shooting they really need in Emmanuel Quickly, plus getting the center they've coveted for a while in Poeltl, but giving up maybe a rising star in Anunoby in the process?
Anunoby might be Defensive Player of the Year. He's definitely in the conversation so far, the first 20 games or however many. But I don't know. I think they do come out pretty good there, just because they're getting Jakob, they're getting two young guards, and RJ and Quickly. I'm not sure if they swing that deal. It feels like OG is a guy that's always been swirling in rumors, and he's it might be the year he gets traded, and then he just sticks around another year. Very Miles Turner-esque. But it's hard to just gauge RJ's trade value right now, because it's he's clearly playing bad on both ends. He's clearly struggling, and there's been a couple of sometimes you see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's getting harder to see at times. I didn't have a specific deal in my mind when I imagined it. I kind of just thought teams would be, if he continued at kind of playing at the rate that he's playing right now, is how I took it. And it reminds me of a deal that the Mavericks and the Wizards did last year, where it's two distressed assets, where they're trading Kristaps for Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans. I kind of thought it's okay, this guy clearly has talent. It's not like he's there's nothing to kind of give you any positive implication that he can't figure it out. I just think that it's more of a situation where maybe he needs like a change of scenery, or maybe a team would believe he needs a change of scenery. I just think with the amount of money he's owed in the future, now that he signed that extension, it's going to be hard for a team to really like swing that deal unless they have like a lot of belief in him.
Yeah, I think the Raptors would almost be more likely to do that deal if you put Quentin Grimes in there instead of RJ Barrett,
Probably.
just because their offense is already so clunky, and throwing RJ into that mix feels a little poison, though.
Yeah.
Maybe just Canada's favorite son, that factor could get it done. But for the Knicks, I don't. For me, like I would be reticent to include Grimes in that kind of trade. But if you're getting off RJ for OG, and like obviously it hurts to lose quickly, like I don't know. I like the idea of the Knicks having a true two-way wing, which I don't think they totally have right now.
Yeah, OG would be, if they were to somehow get like OG alongside Quentin Grimes, like that perimeter defense alongside a guy like Jalen Brunson. And I do think there is room for like a guy like OG and Anunoby to kind of spread his wings a little more offensively. He's shown some flashes as well. But it does feel like a lot to give up for like RJ and quickly, just because RJ means so much to the franchise. I think he's their guy, and they gave him the contract. I think, like realistically speaking, he'll get as many chances as possible to figure it out in New York, I believe.
Yeah, it feels like one of those trades where both teams kind of walk up to the line and then are ultimately like, nah, we can't really do this. But I'm with you. I think even though he's having the best offensive season of his career, there's still some untapped potential there with OG. All right, so I just kept going through teams. Indiana initially, I was like, oh, they would want to buy low on him, but they're not trading Hallie or Mathurin, so there's nothing really to be done there. For the Wizards, I came up with kind of a crazy one. RJ and Julius for our guy Kristaps Porzingis coming home, and Johnny Davis. Is that crazy? That's probably crazy for both sides. I mean, KP's playing so well for the Wizards right now. I don't even know if they'd want to move off of him, but maybe they see RJ as like, all right, like young wing to put next to Bradley Beal. Randall could replicate some of that production. There are probably Knicks fans who are like, are you crazy? That's like our two best guys. It's too much for, and obviously KP, there would be some issues with him coming back to New York.
Yeah, I think despite the ill will that people have towards Porzingis, I think people kind of have more ill will towards Julius right now. So people might like be willing to swing that deal just off those two.
You're saying like enemy of the enemy is my friend type of situation.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like we hate him a little less, but I think overall like Porzingis would be an upgrade over Julius right now, just the way that both of them are playing. I do think Julius is having a pretty like decent season, like especially offensively. It's the defensive aspect of him that's kind of like really tanking his value, like just as a player right now. But the RJ, you get a swing at Johnny Davis. He hasn't looked too good to start, but it's only been like 20 games. Not gonna overreact to that small sample size. It's a fun idea. I don't think either team does it though. It would be so hard for the Knicks to sell that.
All right, that one I'm pushing. All right, let me throw one more kind of crazy one at you, then we can move on unless you have any other ideas. All right, guys, we'll be back with Ariel in just a second to continue discussing RJ Barrett trades. I might just send him to the Sacramento Kings, but first I have to tell you about PrizePicks. Tonight, I think I'm going to take, this is ironic given the subject matter, but I'm going to take RJ Barrett to score over 18 points. I'm going to take Julius Randle to have over 7.5 rebounds. And, I'm just going to go for it. I'm taking Jalen Brunson over 5.5 assists. So how does PrizePicks work? All you have to do is pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. That's a crazy number. 25 times. No competing against other people, just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projection on any sport you could watch. That includes the NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and somehow more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. They're safe and fast withdrawals, and it's currently operational over 30 states, and most importantly, Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up today and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. So don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. So this one I have a screenshot for. If you're watching on YouTube, go watch on YouTube if you aren't. The New York Knicks get Malik Monk from the Sacramento Kings, in addition to a top 5 pick from last year's draft in Keegan Murray. The Kings get RJ Barrett, and initially I just had them getting RJ Barrett, and then I was like, all right, that's probably too little for a top 5 pick in Murray. So I threw Emmanuel Quickly in there. Now some would say that's too much. I would argue if you're getting Monk, you don't really have room for Quickly anyways. The Spurs have been my go-to just throw-in team, as they have all the cap room in the world. And so they're just getting Flotsam. Maybe they get a couple second round picks, but you're trading a few more guys in there to make it work. But for the Knicks, I think even though you're dealing quickly, you drastically upgrade your shooting, you upgrade your creation with Monk. You're losing some defense, though. Keegan Murray, I think, has some upside on that. And I just really love the mold of like another big shooter next to Obi Toppin and Mitchell Robinson. And I think I was kind of, I guess, getting into this with OG, but the Knicks either need a really complete two-way wing, or they need a 3 that can is big and can guard up a position and can just shoot the heck out of the basketball to kind of space around like a future Obi Mitch front court, or even if you're going to keep Julius, to space around Julius and Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah, I definitely get the idea behind the deal. Again, I don't think either team does it, just because I think teams are very reluctant to trade, especially a top 5 pick in the first year of a deal.
That'd be crazy, especially when they're doing well. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, there's no reason to go that would be Ultra Kings just to mess up the vibes there.
So maybe it's the right team for it.
Exactly. Yeah, maybe they will do it. But but I see the vision behind it. It would be hard to give up RJ and Quickly, I think, in the same deal. But I don't hate the idea of it. I do get the idea of trying to get a big wing who can really shoot, because that's definitely what the Knicks need right now. I think they're still probably 30th in 3-point shooting this season. So,
I should have thrown a really crazy one at you just to see if you would have been nice and been like, yeah, I can talk myself into that. I don't know, man. You're too nice. I'm not sure if these are crazy or not, but we can keep it moving. But I think just to conclude this portion of the conversation, it's hard to trade RJ Barrett, because we were talking about it pre-show a little, but I have no idea if teams see him as wow, he's a victim of everything the Knicks have done wrong in building this team. He's a victim of Julius Randle. He's a victim of Tom Thibodeau, and he is still an outstanding talent. And there's a real window here to buy super, super low on him, and he could go somewhere else in 2 years, be an all-star. Or if teams are looking at him and saying, he might just be a bench guy. And he might not be more than that. And the Knicks screwed up giving him that contract, or very likely the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, judging his value right now is just difficult. I think we just need more of a sample size to see maybe reevaluate it at the All-Star break, see how he's playing. If he's still playing at this very kind of disappointing level, I think teams are going to be a lot more iffy. But if we're judging this question off today, we're making a deal, it's very difficult to understand how teams are viewing it. But I doubt teams would overvalue a 20-game sample size. But I do think they would also use that 20-game sample size to try to get him for cheaper, if that makes sense.
All right. So speaking of 20-game sample size, that is what we touch on in our next
Perfect
question. Yeah, Jordan. Yeah, you're good at this, man. You need a pot. Jordan Bub at Bub Jordan. He said, based on what you saw, he says the first 20 games. It's now up to 24 games. What trend do you think the Knicks will go for in the next 20 games? Would it be a positive trend or negative trend? What would be their record after the next 20 games? So, Ariel, what direction do you think the Knicks are moving in? Do you sense any type of stabilization? Fred Katz of The Athletic wrote about this today. The Knicks are fairly predictable in that they beat bad teams and they lose to good teams, but the way they go about it is absolutely nuts.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to put it, actually. The trend that I think will continue is that the Knicks are going to keep struggling to string together wins and beat the good teams. I think the unevenness in play is mostly a product of kind of they lose on the margins. It's the little things, especially when they're in these close games. Their offense gets very predictable. It's just mismatch hunting. And if Brunson doesn't have it going at the end of the game, it gets very hard for them to score baskets in the half court. But yeah, I just think it's going to be a lot of this where we're ugly losses, and then even the wins feel a little you got a bad taste in your mouth. I just think the I'm not a big believer in Tom Thibodeau and the coaching. So I just think they lose a lot on the margins in the middle of the games where they have these leads where they're up 12, 14 points, and then it's gone in a second. And I think the adjustments come a little too slow. So I definitely think we're just going to keep seeing this up and down that we have seen for the first 24 games, you said.
And I'm guessing based on that comment, you're not really optimistic that there's going to be a change made in the coaching department anytime soon.
Not anytime soon, unless it gets really ugly. It just sounds like I think Ian Begley said the other day that Leon
He,
Rose is like very attached to Tom
mhm.
Thibodeau, which I understand. I think they had a personal relationship before he was ever
Yeah, he
hired.
was he was his agent, if I'm remembering
Yeah,
correctly.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think it's gonna take a lot. Like it's gonna take a couple ugly like home losses where they get like booed off. I think for something to happen. And then until then, I think it's just gonna be like status quo.
Yeah, he's almost an evil genius in that every time they have one of those horrible losses, they pull it together. They have a gutsy
I've
effort.
been seeing
Uh,
I've been
I know
seeing
our
people
guy.
joking that
Yeah,
he has like voodoo magic and stuff, and he
Prez.
just
Yeah,
always finds
yeah.
a
That's
way. Yeah,
that's
Prez
exactly
is the
what I was
one who's
gonna
doing
say.
it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and it feels like, and he's right. Like it feels like every time they really need to win, the other team's best or second best player is just mysteriously out with an injury.
Nikola Jokic, and
Yeah.
it just happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that could be the real reason Tibbs never married. His house is just full of voodoo dolls of every player in the league. And maybe he's accidentally been poking the RJ and Julius ones. But I kind of wanted to just go through like the upcoming schedule real quick because I think
Sure.
it's semi manageable where you could talk yourself into them going on a run. Right? They play Atlanta. I guess it'll be tonight when this podcast comes out. They play Charlotte on Friday, very winnable. The Kings obviously a lot better, but certainly not an impossible game. 2 games against the Bulls. Like now's a good time to play the Bulls. They're really struggling. Then you get the Pacers, Golden State at home. That's tough. Toronto at home. That's tough. Then you get the Bulls again. You get Philly, Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, Phoenix, San Antonio, Toronto, and then that gets you to approximately 20 games. Like there's like talent wise, they should go maybe 12-8 over that stretch. But like you, I don't think I have any confidence from night to night. And to me, I think this is kind of what you're getting at, but the biggest point of vacillation is that they just give up so many threes. It really just comes
Yeah.
down to like if the other team's having a hot shooting night and can hit open shots or not.
Yeah, literally like last night against the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers got a bunch of good looks. They weren't hitting. Like Donovan Mitchell missed a bunch of good looks that he normally makes. So a lot of it is gonna come down to like, which kind of it's kind of bogs down the conversation to just say it's like luck, 3-point shooting luck. But a lot of it that's kind of the Knicks scheme right now is they give up those corner threes a lot. So if the team's hitting that night, they're gonna get blown out of the water, just like it happened in that OKC game when they lost.
Yeah, and I guess I mean the adjustments that are trying to be made now is to potentially get a little bit more Deuce McBride in there, which can help in that. But you're obviously you're losing something on the other end there, where the Knicks had and we'll touch on this in either a second or our next show. But in terms of Knicks' best defensive lineups, but they had a 4-minute stretch when those young guys were in defending their butts off, where they didn't score the basketball. So it feels like, and this is where you feel sympathy for Tibbs. Like there's a cost to like any move that decreases that variance outside of maybe playing RJ Barrett less, which doesn't appear to be on the table right now, or Julius Randle less at points, which doesn't appear to be on the table right now.
Yeah, exactly. RJ Barrett had a 20-minute half against the first half against the Cavs,
Yeah.
and it was probably his worst half of the season or up there. The traveling calls didn't help him, but that's a different story.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to one more. It comes from Michael Shane at I don't even know what's going on with this name. I think it's at Neb Sook is what I'm going with. It's ATNEBSOOK. I'm going at Neb Sook. At Neb Sook wants to know. I don't know how you get there from Michael Shane, but you know what? He'll tell us in the comments. What has been your favorite 5-man defensive lineup this season? Which game was it from? Ariel, I don't know about you. My mind just flashed to the lineup we got last night, which was IQ, Deuce, Grimes, Obi, Hart. But did you have a different one?
It was the exact same lineup, but instead of Hart, it was Robinson. He was in for a couple of seconds, so I'm cheating and I'm using
You're
that
going with
one.
that? Yeah.
Yeah. But if the question was like if it were up to me, like which lineup would I use? It's the
We actually
exact
have that
same.
question next
Oh,
pod. But
okay.
yeah,
So I'll hold off. I'll hold off on it. But yeah, I do think that lineup is just the amount of perimeter defense, the ability to just switch. Their communication is just seamless. The way they execute is it's like flawless. And then in the occasion that they do mess up, they got Mitchell Robinson in the back just holding down the paint. So I just really like how that it's mostly that four. I just used Obi because Obi was in the game, but that four of quickly McBride, Grimes, and Robinson, I just think that's like you can build a real legitimate defense with that four.
let me throw this your way. Do you think this seems impossible because it's like saying like could you make the Grinch happy? But if you put Julius in that lineup instead of Obi and went to a little bit more of a switch heavy screen, which I know with Robin, like maybe then you have to put Sims instead of Mitch if you want a little bit more mobility in there as well. But do you think those guys could kind of infect Julius with like their effort defensively? Because it's a weird thing, right? Where Obi fits in so well because he is exceptionally smart and he tries really hard on that end. But Julius is almost a higher ceiling option if he can play like that.
Yeah, if you get the engaged Julius, he's a legitimately like good switch defender. Like if you remember that Atlanta series when he got to switch on to Trae Young couldn't shake him. It's just you don't know if you're gonna get the engaged version, but if you do, the ceiling is like you said, it's a lot higher than it is with Obi. But I do think Obi gives you the better floor of like at minimum you're gonna get effort, and he's gonna at least try to be in the right spots. With Julius, it's more of a like, is he in the mood? Is he in the right mood to play some defense? But I agree with you completely though.
Yeah, I was just he had some like just the last 2 games he could like he had one possession where he totally locked Luka up and you could tell Luka was like, wait, this guy is like I can't bully this guy and he's pretty much as fast as me. Like, what do I really do here? And then like 2 minutes later, Julius was like, oh, butterfly, and then he lost it. But it was like a good little stretch. And then he got Garland to just throw the ball away with. I think that was in the final 2 minutes of the game. Like like guys of different sizes. Like look, I don't want to get depressed. So I don't want to talk about it too much, but there's just so much talent defensively there for Julius Randle. But that'll wrap up this part 1. We will be back on Friday morning with a part 2. Ariel, though, before I let you go, can you just tell everyone where they can find all your work?
So you could just follow me on Twitter at Pacheco NBA. Anything I do or post or any video breakdowns I do are always on my Twitter. So just follow me there.
All right, we said it last time. We'll say it again for any time you missed it. You now video breakdowns with audio, with commentary, which is a lot of fun and allows you to get in captions. Wow, it's a whole new world. Allows you to get a little bit more in depth. So, but fear not. If you enjoyed this one, we'll be back with Ariel Friday morning for another.